the smell never left his hands. Working by candlelight, he dug into rotting corpses, his fingers soaked in blood and decay. That's how Leonardo da Vinci spent his nights. He wasn't painting, he was dissecting, searching for the truth of the human body, a truth that may have changed everything he believed about humanity. Picture Florence in 1506. The Renaissance is blooming, art is celebrated, and yet in the depths of Santa Maria Nuova Hospital, a 54-year-old artist is having a conversation with a man who claims to be over 100 years old. The ancient man's skin hangs like parchment, his breathing shallow and labored. Leonardo sketches as they talk, fascinated by this living relic. Then the old man dies, and Leonardo's real work begins. Within hours of the man's death, Leonardo is bent over the corpse with his scalpel. He opens the chest cavity, peers into the heart, traces every vessel with his fingers. What he discovers will haunt him. The old man's arteries are thick and twisted, hardened like tree bark. Leonardo has just become the first person in history to identify atherosclerosis, the silent killer that clogs our arteries. But this discovery comes at a cost that few could bear. You see, dissecting human bodies wasn't just frowned upon in Renaissance Italy. It was considered a violation of the sacred. The Catholic Church hadn't explicitly banned dissection, but society certainly had. Only licensed physicians could legally cut into human remains, and Leonardo was just an artist. Yet here he was, night after night, illegally dissecting corpses in secret rooms, his artistic curiosity having evolved into something far more consuming. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Leonardo had started innocently enough in the 1480s, dissecting animals to better understand anatomy for his paintings. But animals weren't enough. He needed to know how human muscles actually moved, how the heart truly pumped blood, how the eye actually saw. So he began seeking out fresh human corpses, working with grave robbers and hospital attendants who would slip him bodies under cover of darkness. His notebooks from this period reveal a man becoming increasingly obsessed with death and decay. He writes detailed observations about how bodies decompose, how rigor mortis sets in, how different organs shut down. He's no longer just an artist studying anatomy. He's become something else entirely, a scientist, a researcher, perhaps even a madman. Leonardo's dissection chamber was a scene from a nightmare. Imagine walking into that room, bodies laid out on wooden tables, organs floating in jars, the air thick with the stench of death and preservative chemicals. Leonardo would work for hours, sometimes through the entire night, his hands moving with surgical precision as he peeled away layers of skin and muscle. But here's what makes his story truly extraordinary. Leonardo wasn't just cutting bodies apart randomly. He was conducting the world's first systematic study of human anatomy. He would dissect an organ, then immediately draw what he saw with incredible accuracy. His drawings were so precise that modern medical students still use them today, 500 years later. Take his studies of the human heart. Leonardo didn't just open up a chest and sketch what he found. He built a glass model of the aorta and pumped water through it to understand how blood flows through the valves. He injected molten wax into the brain's ventricles to create the first accurate cast of those chambers. He discovered that the heart, not the liver, was the center of the blood system, overturning medical knowledge that had stood for over 1,000 years. His anatomical drawings reveal a mind that saw the human body as a machine, a beautiful, complex machine that could be understood through careful observation and study. He drew muscles like mechanical cables, bones like architectural supports, the nervous system like an intricate network of roads. But this mechanical view of humanity came at a psychological cost. The more bodies Leonardo dissected, the more isolated he became from normal society. His notebooks show a man increasingly preoccupied with death, with decay, with the fragility of human existence. He writes about watching life leave a body, about the exact moment when consciousness departs. He's witnessing something that no artist before him had ever seen so intimately: the boundary between life and death. Leonardo's obsession with dissection began to change him in ways that worried his contemporaries. Friends noted that he had become withdrawn, almost secretive. He would disappear for days at a time, only to return with sketches of internal organs and detailed notes about human physiology. His workshop, once a center of artistic activity, became more like a medical laboratory. The psychological toll was evident in his work. His later paintings show a profound understanding of human emotion and vulnerability that could only come from someone who had literally seen inside the human condition. The Mona Lisa's enigmatic expression, painted around this time, carries a depth of understanding about human nature that goes beyond surface observation. Leonardo had seen what makes us human from the inside out. But knowledge came with a price. Leonardo's illegal dissections put him in constant danger. If caught, he could face excommunication from the church, exile from his patron cities, or worse. He developed elaborate systems of coded writing in his notebooks, partly to protect his anatomical discoveries from those who might use them against him. The secrecy took its toll. Leonardo became increasingly paranoid, suspicious of others' motives. He would hide his anatomical drawings, speak in riddles about his work, and trust only a few close associates with knowledge of his nocturnal activities. The brilliant artist who had once been the life of court gatherings was becoming a shadowy figure who lived in the spaces between life and death. Yet, he couldn't stop. The human body had become his obsession, his addiction. Each dissection revealed new mysteries that demanded investigation. How did the eye actually see? Why did some people live longer than others? What caused diseases? Leonardo had questions that could only be answered by cutting deeper, looking closer, pushing further into the realm of the forbidden. By 1515, Leonardo had dissected 30 human corpses and countless animals. His anatomical knowledge was unprecedented in human history. He had identified atherosclerosis, mapped the cardiovascular system, studied the nervous system, and made discoveries about the brain that wouldn't be confirmed by science for another 3 centuries. But was he still sane? His notebooks from this period show a mind that had perhaps gone too far into the darkness. He writes obsessively about death, about the mechanics of dying, about what happens to the soul when the body fails. He had become so intimate with death that life itself seemed alien to him. Leonardo's contemporaries were divided in their opinions. Some saw him as the ultimate Renaissance man, a genius who combined art and science in ways that had never been attempted. Others whispered that he had crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed, that his obsession with corpses had corrupted his mind. The truth, as always with Leonardo, is more complex. His anatomical work made him perhaps the first true scientist in the modern sense, someone who formed hypotheses based on direct observation, rather than accepting ancient authorities. His dissections gave him insights into human nature that informed his art and made him one of history's greatest painters. But the cost was enormous. Leonardo had sacrificed normal human relationships, social acceptance, and perhaps his own peace of mind in pursuit of knowledge. He had looked into the abyss of human mortality and found there both incredible beauty and terrible truth. His anatomical drawings show a man who saw the human body as both sacred and mechanical, beautiful and terrifying. He could draw the delicate architecture of a hand with loving precision, then, on the next page, sketch the decay that would eventually claim that same hand. He had achieved a perspective on humanity that was both godlike and deeply troubling. Leonardo's last anatomical work was perhaps his most poignant. As he aged, he began studying his own body with the same clinical detachment he had brought to his 30 corpses. He documented the changes in his own muscles, the stiffening of his joints, the gradual failure of his vision. The man who had spent decades studying death was now watching it approach his own door. In his final years, Leonardo's right hand became paralyzed, forcing him to switch to his left hand for writing and drawing. He studied this paralysis with scientific curiosity, documenting the progression of what was likely a stroke. Even in his own decline, he remained the anatomist, the observer, the seeker of knowledge. When Leonardo died in 1519, his anatomical notebooks contained over 240 drawings and thousands of observations about the human body. But he had never published this work, never shared his discoveries with the medical community. The knowledge he had gained through 30 dissections, through years of secretive study, through his descent into the realm of death, all of it remained hidden in his coded notebooks. Perhaps Leonardo understood that the world wasn't ready for what he had discovered. His anatomical accuracy was centuries ahead of its time. His insights into human physiology wouldn't be confirmed until the invention of advanced imaging technology. The man who had carved apart 30 bodies to understand life had seen too far into the future. Today we can look at Leonardo's anatomical drawings and see the work of a scientific genius, but we must also recognize the psychological cost of his obsession. Leonardo had pushed himself to the very limits of what a human mind could handle in pursuit of knowledge about the human condition. His anatomical work reveals a fundamental truth about genius. It often requires a willingness to go where others cannot or will not go. Leonardo didn't just study the human body, he inhabited the space between life and death, between art and science, between sanity and madness. His 30 dissections made him perhaps the most knowledgeable person about human anatomy who had ever lived. But they also isolated him from the very humanity he sought to understand. The smell never left his hands. Even in his final years, Leonardo would catch the scent of decay and preservatives, a reminder of those long nights in morgues and cellars. He had paid the ultimate price for knowledge. He had looked so deeply into death that life itself became foreign to him. But perhaps that was the price of being Leonardo da Vinci. Perhaps true genius requires a willingness to sacrifice everything, comfort, acceptance, sanity itself, in pursuit of understanding. His anatomical work didn't just advance science, it revealed the terrible beauty of human curiosity, the drive to know truth regardless of the cost. In the end, Leonardo's 30 dissections tell us as much about the dissector as they do about the dissected. They show us a man who was willing to become a stranger to his own species in order to understand what makes us human. Whether that makes him a genius or a madman might depend on how comfortable we are with the idea that sometimes they're the same thing. The bodies are long gone, the morgues have been converted to other uses, and the scent of decay has finally faded from history. But Leonardo's anatomical drawings remain, testament to a mind that saw beauty in death, knowledge in decay, and truth in the most forbidden corners of human experience. His legacy isn't just in what he discovered, but in what he was willing to become in order to discover it. That, perhaps, is the real anatomy of genius.